Hello, my friends. Today I'm in a SpongeBob shirt, and we're gonna talk about the books that I read in August. August, like stats-wise, was not like the most impressive month that I have ever read books in. That's the most awkward sentence I've ever said in my life. But I finished 4 books in the month of August. And I feel like, considering we got to the end of the month and I felt like I hadn't really read anything, I feel like I read quite a bit. And one of them is a new favorite. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. So the first 2 books that I read in the month of August are a part of the same series. And I don't remember what series is called, but Sea of Rust and Day Zero by C. Robert Cargill. I do have a full spoiler-free review of Sea of Rust on my channel. I'll have it linked. But I also went and read the prequel Day Zero as well. So these books are set in a post-apocalyptic world. Sea of Rust is following this robot named Brittle after the fall of humanity pretty much, and she is trying to survive in this kind of desert wasteland of a world where humans don't exist anymore. Robots have taken over, and also there is this new threat of these AI supergiant things that are trying to go around and collect the consciousness of all of the robots that have survived this post-apocalyptic situation. Day Zero follows this little boy named Ezra and his nanny bot, who is like a fluffy Tigger-looking thing, at the beginning of the apocalypse, when the robots begin to turn on their owners, and there's this huge push for all of the robots to join in the eradication of humanity, and Pounce is really struggling with, should I join my people, the robots, or should I continue to protect this little boy named Ezra? So we follow Ezra and Pounce as they're again trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic landscape. At the beginning of it, when everything's really scary and the robots begin to turn on humanity and it gets a little gory and scary and things, I do think that I liked Day Zero a little bit more than Sea of Rust. I just really enjoyed this conversation that Pounce is constantly having in his head about autonomy and whether or not he is going with his programming or whether he is choosing to protect this boy that he seems to care so much about. Does he truly love Ezra, or is that just what he has been programmed to do, you know? As they're trying to connect with like-minded robots and humans in a world that is seemingly not safe for either of them. Sea of Rust was really good, but I do think that I was more interested in the things that were happening in the past, because we do get quite a bit of Brittle reacting to and remembering things from the war. And so I think that Day Zero really landed for me because it was dealing with some of the things that happened in the past, how the robots rose up, what was the tipping point, how everything started, you know, that sort of thing. I think that's why this one hit for me more than Sea of Rust. But I really did enjoy both of these, and I think that if you're looking for a sci-fi post-apocalyptic that deals with some social commentary that may be a little bit too close to home, I definitely think that you should check these out. The next book that I read in the month of August was Lost Gods by Bram. I read The Child Thief by Bram a couple of years ago. This is a dark Peter Pan retelling. Fantastic. I really, really liked it. Lost Gods, to explain it to you without spoilers, is a little bit difficult, but I'm going to try my best, okay? So I'm going to give you vibes first, because I think that's the easiest way to give you the kind of tone of this book without giving away too much. So Lost Gods is as if Stephen King wrote the movie Coco and Tim Burton directed it, but Rick Riordan was also on the team and added some of these Percy Jackson elements to it. That's the vibes that happen. So we're following this guy named Chet, which is the funniest name to ever exist, but Chet, through a series of circumstances, is sent on this quest down to Purgatory to find his murderous grandfather and take back a key from him that is supposedly going to destroy this great evil on Earth, okay? So that's where I'm getting the Coco vibes. That's where I'm getting the Coco vibes. We go down to Purgatory. There's all of these gods, but there's also these people that are kind of like god killers from the series by Hannah Kaner, who really want to rid Purgatory of all of these old gods. Chet obviously meets some friends along the way. He has a lot of issues along the way. My dog's barking. If you can hear him, I'm just gonna ignore him. Some of the scenes in here are a little bit disturbing. We also have a couple of characters who died by self-inflicted wounds. We also have, you know, some people that have done some really, really bad things and are in Purgatory still doing some bad things. And the old gods are really interesting in here as well. You know, we mainly focus on 3, but those 3 are very fascinating, as well as the fact that Brom has his own illustrations that he has done. So we also have these illustrations that are included as well in the book that are done by Brom, and they are fantastic. There's a couple of more of them, but I'm not going to show you all of the illustrations, obviously. I really ended up liking this one, and I definitely want to read more by Brom. He is kind of like the literary version of a Tim Burton movie. Like, there's just some wacky shit in there. He does a really good job with atmosphere and taking stories that are kind of similar to other stories, but putting a dark and twisty twist on them. The only negative that I have towards both of the books that I've read by Brom is that I, for some reason, have a little bit of a difficult time in connecting completely with his characters. I do enjoy his characters. I'm interested in where they're going, but I'm more so interested in what's happening to them and also the world around them than I am in his characters as individual human beings. I do think that that affects my enjoyment of the book because I am a character-driven reader, but I do think that the atmosphere and the plot and the worlds that he creates kind of makes up for it in a way that I still gave it 4 stars. So it wasn't a huge drawback for me, but it is something that I would like to mention. And the last book that I read in the month of August is my new favorite, which is The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. This is a super, super long series that was originally a serialized web novel, and Pirate Abba is going through and re-editing them and publishing or whatever. I listened to this one on audiobook. The audiobook narrator is fantastic. She is so good at differentiating different species. Okay, there's different species in here. I haven't even told you what this is about, okay? So we're following this girl named Erin Solstice, who is from our world, but somehow during the night, one night, she is transported to this other world. It's a kind of like Dungeons and Dragons-esque world. The book is lit RPG, so we have leveling systems, we have classes, and obviously, since it is a D&D-esque world, classic fantasy-esque world, we have different species. We have drakes, who are like big lizards. We have Antinium, which are like big ants. We have goblins. We have various monsters. We have gnolls, who are like big hyenas. Like, we just have a ton of different races to explore. And Erin is plopped down outside of the city of Lascore, which is a drake settlement, and she finds this inn, and she decides to fix up this inn, not only for a place to stay, but also, because she has been plopped down in the middle of this world that she has no idea where she's at, and she needs some shmoney. Okay, she needs some shmoney, she needs some resources, so she decides to fix up this inn, which eventually obviously becomes the Wandering Inn. Now, the first 8 chapters for me were really, really difficult. Erin comes across as a stereotypical anime heroine. She's very whiny, she's very stubborn, she goes, ow, a lot, and she really got on my nerves. Like, when I first started this, I genuinely wanted to put it down, but since I was listening to it on audiobook and I was listening to it at work, it was kind of like one of those things where I was just like, let's just keep going, and it got to the point where I was so attached to Erin, and she never stopped being slightly annoying, but it became endearing for me, and I got so attached to Erin that I was about this close. Every single time somebody did something mean to her, I was about this close to hopping through the page or the screen, as it were, and beating somebody up because I got so attached to her. We're also introduced to a fantastic cast of side characters who I am equally as attached to. Erin is one of those characters who is kind of naive. She's very stubborn. She's kind of childlike, but I find this so endearing because she is filled with so much empathy for everyone around her, regardless of preconceived notions, regardless of the way that they look, the way that they talk. Everybody is welcome in the Wandering Inn as long as nobody tries to kill her or kill anybody else. And a lot of the story itself is very cozy. My reading slump video, I'll link that somewhere. I talked about this being a cozy fantasy with a kick, and it definitely is. There are some action scenes, there are some violent scenes. However, the overall tone of the story is just very, very cozy. We're following Erin in a slice of life format as she's cooking, as she's going into the city for the first time. And even though this is a slice of life book, I never found myself bored by the life that we're shown, and I can definitely see why someone would find this book boring or tedious or something like that, but I just didn't. I do think that if you are intimidated by the size, give this first volume a shot. I do think that this is something that you can listen to passively. It's not something that you actively need to be listening to the entirety of the time. There's not a lot of terminology that you need to learn. There's not a huge learning curve when you go into it. It's just a very calming book for the majority of the time. Like I said, said, there are some action scenes that had me on the edge of my seat, but I absolutely love this book. Obviously, it does have some flaws. The writing is not fantastic. It can be a little bit repetitive at times, especially with the dialogue. However, none of these things, for me, made any difference to how much I enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it, and I am addicted. I'm addicted to The Wandering Inn. I'm reading book 2 right now. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of August. Let me know what you guys read in the month of August. Did you find any new favorites? Do you have any recommendations for me to check out? Let me know. But I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you next time.